What is going on to all my elves, goblins, dwarves, and hobbits out there? It is your boy, man, back out with another review, and I am reviewing the newest Lord of the Rings movie, The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, and this is my last review in the Lord of the Rings review series, and it will be building up to my ranking that I will be doing tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But before we get into the actual beginning of the video, what's up, guys? Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, because number one, it's absolutely free. Number two, also maybe able to YouTube algorithm recommend it to more people, and maybe they could join the audience. And do feel free to comment your thoughts on Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim down below. But with that being said, guys, let's get right into before we get right into let's give a quick plot synopsis, shall we? So transition and choose A sudden attack by Wolf, a ruthless Dunlending lord, forces him, Helm Hammerhand, and his people to make a daring last stand in the ancient stronghold of the Hornburg. Finding herself in an increasingly desperate situation, Helm's daughter Hera must lead the resistance against a deadly enemy who's intent on total destruction. Alright, so going into The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, I was kind of going like, I'll probably like this one, but I don't know, I'm not that excited for it. Because it was anime, which I love a couple anime, most of the ones that I've seen, but it's just, I didn't know how well it was going to mesh with the actual Lord of the Rings style. So, and coming out of the movie, let's just see what I think of it. Alright, so starting off with the good in here, we have the animation. I was very pleasantly surprised at how well this blended with little camp of the Rohirrim, or whatever you want to call it. You get really invested in that little tiny place, and it further gets built out compared to the live action films, which I also liked. Also brings me to another thing that the anime sort of animation helped this movie a lot with, is the action sequences. I think the action sequences are quite stellar in here, and I think the animation, I think, really certainly helped with that. I think it did a really good job with that. So I thought that was a pleasant surprise with how good they used that for the action sequences and the overall cinematography and everything in Middle-earth. Also, another good in here is the Easter eggs for fans. Now, I can't talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil it for any of the rest of y'all. So, but the Easter eggs, if you've watched the original trilogy and the movies and everything, a whole lot of Easter eggs that well, not a whole lot, but there's like 2 Easter eggs that you would find very, very cool, and you were going like, ah, man, thank you for reminding me about that. Another good in here, I have the dynamic between Hera and Wolf. So Hera is our main protagonist, and Wolf is our main antagonist. And the dynamic that they add in here, I actually thought was quite interesting, where they had this sort of friendship earlier on when they were kids, but now they have something else going on that entangles them in this huge debate between their parents that I found very interesting. I think that really overall helped with the movie to see where they're standing from at the beginning of their conflict. But as the movie goes along and you see the conflict get even bigger and bigger and bigger with how they see views differently. So I think that what the other thing that helps the dynamic, which I won't talk about too much, but there's another thing that helps with the dynamic as well that I think adds to that childhood stuff with those 2 characters. Now that is the good done, now let's move on to the mixed aspects, which I only have 3. The first one is the familiarity, which this is the most common critique I've seen for this film is the familiarity, which, yes, it is very reminiscent of other movies with its story. And I think it's safe to do that sort of story in here, but then again, there are some moments where I go like, yeah, you could have changed it a little bit, maybe. But I think them going with a simple story definitely added to this movie, whereas for the Lord of the Rings live action movies, they very much are epic in scale with their stories. And as for this one, it's a little bit more smaller scale, which I think it overall did work, even though there were some things I would have changed. Another mix I have is the characters. So Wolf, I really enjoyed. I think he is maybe my second favorite villain in the franchise, which might be a hot take. But I really enjoyed him as a villain, and you wanted to see him lose. As for Hera, I'm a little bit mixed about her, because she's a very likable protagonist, and you definitely root for her. But she's very reminiscent of other characters you've seen before. That she's basically the Ellen Ripley. No, I wouldn't go that far. She's more like the Furiosa from Mad Max. She's more like the Furiosa for the Lord of the Rings franchise. So she's very reminiscent of other characters. Even though you do root for her, she's very, very reminiscent of other characters, and all the other characters are just meh. All the other characters are meh, but them two specifically are the ones that stand out, I think. And the final mixed aspect I have in here is it not being in any other places besides the Rohirrim. So, I mean, because the movie is, after all, titled Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. So, you gotta have the wars in Rohirrim, right? But then again, I feel like you kind of miss out on further building the world of Middle-earth, exploring everything else in this particular world instead of just being one location. I feel like they missed out on a couple of places they could have further explored the lore and stuff. So, that's another mixed aspect. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we unfortunately move on to the bad, which I only have one. Not enough creatures, which we've seen this from the trailers. There is an eagle in this movie, but besides that, don't get me wrong, there's other creatures too that are well known in the Lord of the Rings franchise, but they don't debut any new creatures at all. That I found a little tiny bit disappointing. Still love the movie though. With that being said, guys, that's just my thoughts on Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim. Now, with that being said, let's bring out the toxic meter. And I'm going to give this not toxic, an A-. And I'm been a little bit more positive on this one compared to everyone else, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. I was very surprised by it. If you guys are Lord of the Rings fans and anime fans, I think you're definitely gonna love this. If you don't get the anime style, probably just stream it and see what you think of it there and form your own opinion. But yeah, I overall dug it. I was very surprised by it, and it's definitely going to be in my top 5 most surprising movies of the year. But that, as I said before, that's just my thoughts on Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down below, and stay tuned for my ranking of all the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies and animated movies, ranking them from the worst to the best tomorrow. With that being said, I think I've said that a couple times now. I'll see y'all next one, everybody. Peace.